So let's talk about the Honolulu Rail. I was given the opportunity to ride the rail a little early and check it out, and so I want to share my experiences, some of the good things and some of the not so good things, just as a regular local here on Oahu. By the way, just enjoying the beach. I know the exposure a little now. I'm just enjoying the beach. So yeah, just wanted to share just my general thoughts about the rail. And so I actually got notes, and let's go. Hello from Hawaii. I also want to mention that I'm not going to show any videos or photos of me going on the rail, and that's because of the circumstances of how I got to try the rail. I just don't feel comfortable showing that footage. Not that there's anything bad, it's just the circumstances of that. I just don't think that it's right. And besides, there will be tons of footage once it's open to the general public. So first I want to talk about my general overall experience. I started at the Halawa station, which is the one by Aloha Stadium, and then we went all the way to Kapolei, and then we came back. We didn't get off at any of the stations, but we did stop at every station, and so we got to kind of experience what it would be like as you're kind of going and stopping. They estimated 22 minutes down one way and then 22 minutes back, and I think that was fairly accurate. Of course, all the rail cars were nice and clean. Everything was just real nice for us, and again, just very appreciative of the opportunity to go and check it out, just like a lot of people are going to be able to check out this weekend for free. All right, so now let's talk about the pros here. First pro about the rail. It provided some of the most beautiful views of the west side, like central Oahu going out to the west side. I don't get out much out of town, and I grew up in Kaneohe, so me going to the west side was pretty much like Waikele, maybe occasionally if we go Aulani, but other than that, we're not going to Kapolei, we're not going to Waianae, Makaha, Waipahu, even all that much. So the fact that we were able to see, or I was able to see some of these places from a top-down view, I think was really amazing. And so I actually think for a lot of people who live in maybe Honolulu, Kaneohe, east side, who don't often make it out to the west side, it's just kind of a nice way to see other parts of the island. And you see a lot of flat land, you see a lot of ag land, and yeah, it's a little brown on that side, especially when you compare it to a place like the windward side where it's super green with a nice ko'olaus. You got the Waianae Mountains on that side, and it's not as beautiful, but it's beautiful in a different way. All right, second pro was actually the riding experience. A lot of my expectations were quite low when it comes to the rail. And so when I was on the rail and we were riding it, it's actually quite smooth. It was probably comparable to Japan. It's little, you get little bumps here and there, but nothing like too crazy, nothing too earth-shattering. So I think that in terms of the riding experience, I thought it was really great. All right, the third thing is the layout of the individual trains. If you notice in the train, it's actually quite wide. I know in Japan it's a little bit narrow, but here they designed it where it's like pretty wide for the aisles, which I guess is good for when you get a lot of people, but also in between the different rail cars, there's no like door. So if you're familiar with like Japan, there's like individual doors in between the actual rail cars. But the way that the rail is set up, it's like one long like tube, it's like one long hot dog. And so there's no like, where the joints of the different rail cars go, there's no door, it's just like wide open. So that was like kind of shocking because other rails do it differently. And I guess this is part of the forward thinking when it comes to like the wider layout of the actual rail cars, is that if people do travel with luggage, they're gonna need like wider room. So I'm glad that they actually made it a little wide. Maybe some people might consider it too wide, but when you consider standing room and just people riding this thing, I think that's actually quite a great design. And the fourth pro is the potential. Now, it's sort of a con, but when it comes to the rail, where the rail stations are located right now, I don't know how useful it will be for the current population and just where the current housing is. It's a difficult sell, let's be honest. It's a difficult sell. However, as we're going along the rail, you could see the potential of how this thing could actually be used, and a lot of the space that is out there to build potential housing. Especially when you go out towards like past Waipahu side, you can see a lot of the flat land, and if they're somehow able to get that land, again, I know it's controversial, but convert the land from ag into land that could be built into housing. Now again, I know there'd have to be some kind of land swap or something so that we don't lose ag land just to build houses. The potential of it, it's just incredible. Like, if you go into it being pessimistic, it's kind of like you're not really going to enjoy the ride. But if you just kind of look at it like, okay, well, this is what we paid for, this is what we're going with, so let's see how it is. And then you just look at what could be. You know, it does bring you a little smile on the inside. At least it did for me. You know, just the fact that, you know, it's nice. You know, it's an opportunity that if we make the right choices as a state, this could actually work out for us. You know, again, maybe not in its current state, but this is only like phase 1, or this is like 0.5, I don't know. But like it's not like it's full potential yet. But if you can look at the potential of it and what it could possibly do, I think you'll see like, we might actually have something here. Ooh, okay, my hand getting sore. Now let's get to the cons, and this one I'll run through. First things first is the bathroom situation. They already publicized that there are bathrooms at each of the stations. Some people actually use the bathroom while we were there, so it does work, but it's not open to the public, and it has a combination, so you're gonna have to ask for assistance to go to the bathroom. I think that is gonna be tough for some people, and something that I hope that they figure out a way around, because I just don't see, like for my son, for example, right? If we go to the rail, he's got to use the bathroom. He's a kid. I can't imagine being like, okay, well, we got to go and wait, and then we got to go and find the attendant. So to me, I wish that they had public bathrooms. I wish they had either porta potty or just something for now, and then maybe figure out another long-term solution in the future. Another one that maybe they're not talking about, but I think it's actually quite a big deal, is the stairs. Now, there are elevators and escalators for access. That was totally fine, but we took the stairs up. From the Halava one, we took the stairs up. I don't know why, we just did. I was just following the crowd, okay? So I took the stairs, and I gotta say, that was kind of a lot of stairs. And again, you know, for me, it was fine. I wasn't huffing and puffing too much on the way up to the top. However, I will say that if the escalators ever break or the elevators ever break, man, that's gonna be a lot of stairs for some people to climb. And then even on the way down, we had to take the stairs down. And my concern is just like, that's just a lot of stairs. And again, we, you know, I'm thinking about Hawaii people, right? Not necessarily the best walkers. You have mobility, you have kapuna, you got all these different issues. You know, you got families with strollers. It's gonna be tough. I know that they have accessibility, which is great, but just trying to think, like, if some of this stuff breaks down, man, that stairs is gonna be tough. Another con that only probably applies to some people, that I don't know if people will notice initially, but there's definitely something I noticed as I was looking around, is the height of the railings. So the way that they set it up is there's these railings that you can grab if you're riding, kind of like on the bus, and then there's these straps. Now, there's not that many straps, so if some people are holding onto the strap and they're standing up, if you gotta reach for the rail, you gotta be at least 5'8", like in height, in my opinion. Like, you gotta be at least 5'8", because I was trying to reach up for that pole, I couldn't reach it. So I'm thinking, okay, if I'm standing there and I'm kind of in the middle part and I gotta grab onto something, it's kind of hard. Yeah, it's kind of hard. So I don't know if they're gonna add more straps. I wish they just lowered the bar, like maybe just like a few inches, just so regular people can actually reach the bar. I think that would have been nice. And these are just some last minute random notes that I jotted down. West Oahu. To me, this was one of the biggest concerns that I had, because I remember a long time ago, I went to this graduation at West, and then they were showing the pillars, and I was like, oh, it's kind of far, yeah, from the campus. And they're like, oh yeah, don't worry, they're just gonna walk. And I was like, how? And I was under the assumption that when they were walking, like these students now are gonna be walking like super far away from the campus, and it's quite far. But back then there was like no infrastructure. So I'm glad that now when we stopped at that station and I looked and I saw, okay, at least there's kind of like a path for these students. And, you know, I wish it was a little bit closer. I wish there were more buildings a little bit closer to the rail, so it's not as far. But at least they have like a path for them to walk. I hope it's lighted, and I hope that they have security, because it is a distance. You know, it's not like you just get off the train and you go to school. So I'm glad that it's better than I thought it was, because I really thought that these kids would have to walk in the middle of a field or some, like, you know, cart path, instead of, you know, it's a nice path, nice sidewalks. Again, I just hope that it's safe and secure for some of the students. So that was really nice to see. Another thing is the parking. Now, we parked at the Halava station, which is Aloha Stadium, and it had plenty of parking. So that was really nice. When we're at the other stations, though, I don't know if there's any parking at all. It might be one of those drop-off deals. So that's gonna be a pretty big challenge for the other stations. Now, I don't know if the parking is free. It was hard to tell if when you go to Aloha Stadium, like when it's normal, not like the free weekend, but during normal, is it gonna be free? And then if it is free, how are they going to enforce it being free parking here? Like, guys are going to go to potentially Aloha Stadium in the future, or they're going to go airport, or, like, is it going to be free? Like, how is that going to work for everyone? So I think that will need to be figured out, or at least communicated better, because right now it looks like it's open parking. But in Hawaii, if you get open parking, it's like people park there for all kinds of stuff. So I don't know how the parking is going to work. But again, that's sort of big picture stuff, but just a concern that I had as we were going from each station to station, because some of them it doesn't seem like there's enough room to even include like a small little parking lot. And the last thing I want to mention is just some suggestions that I have based on my experience. The first thing is, it's nice that the inside of the trains are clean right now, but there's absolutely no advertisements. And when you go to Japan, you notice that the trains have tons of advertisements, lots of screens and just general like ads. And I don't know if that's a way for the train to potentially make some money, but I think it would be great if they could at least explore that, if that's even allowed. I don't know if that's allowed under contracts, and there's procurement and all this other stuff. But I just thought, if they needed to utilize some real estate for ads, they could add that to the rail. Another thing that I would suggest is maybe figuring out a better way to include where you can store the luggage, because as I was looking at some of the places for the luggage, I mean, you could fit like maybe some carry-ons, but if you're traveling with like regular size suitcases, especially how some people pack nowadays, it's gonna be hard to lift it up there. But also, I don't even know if my suitcase would be able to fit up there. I know like if you go like on the Shinkansen in Japan, there's like a dedicated area just where you can put your big luggage, so you don't have to worry about the big luggage. You also don't have to worry about anyone taking it, but well, that's a whole nother issue. But I feel like that's an important thing to consider, is like the small luggage can fit on the top, but I don't know if the big luggage can, and even if it can, I think it's going to be hard for most people to lift it up that high. Okay, and my last suggestion. I think that after the first weekend or so, when everyone wants to try it and thinks to themselves, well, probably never riding this again, I think that what they should try to consider doing is to hold either monthly or quarterly like family events at the rail stations to get people to go. Because to me, once the novelty wears off after this first weekend or so, I don't know how the ridership's going to do, because there's really not a lot of reason for most people to ride the rail now. It doesn't really take you anywhere. It works, and that's great, and you can have a good time on it. But in terms of the rail as a utility, like to be able to use it for something meaningful, I'm not sure if it's there yet. They have to figure out how to keep that momentum, how to keep interest in the rail, so that when the rail eventually gets phased in with the full phase all the way to at least airport, or once it hit Middle Street, they have to make that exciting or make it interesting for people. And I think they can do that by having like certain event days. So maybe at some of the rail stations, they could have like music or, food, things that local people like, right? Like farmer's market or craft fair or something, where at each of the stations, maybe they have like certain vendors. And then so you could park at one end, and then you can go and take the rail, and then you can go do all these things with the family. And then, you can eventually go and come back. Again, there'll be issues with bathroom and stuff like that. But I do think that they need to find ways to make it so that people will use the rail once the initial novelty wears off. Because my worry is that once everybody tries it and says, oh yeah, that was cute, and they post all the pictures and they talk about it, once that happens, is nobody's gonna ride it again. And then we're gonna see these like really bad numbers of riders, and people just not care. If they could just find a way to continue that momentum, it would help. And this momentum is gonna have to be for possibly years, but at least till it gets to the airport, I think. And then after that, I think there'll be more functionality and people will actually use it. So that's just some of my general thoughts on the rail. And I can just say, going into it, I was not really expecting much. And I think that's why I was kind of blown away, by the potential of what this can be. I never considered living out on the west side, at least like Kapolei side, and working in town. It's just, the drive right now is too hard, and it would take a lot for me to move there. But as we were driving by like Ho'opili and some of these other places, I thought to myself, you know what? If the rail ever makes it to town and we get the opportunity to buy out there, it's a possibility. I never thought I'd even say that or consider that. But if I can get from the rail in Kapolei all the way out to town in 30, 40 minutes, and then get from the station to my office Probably gonna have to bike that, but that's fine, or walk. I was like, oh, maybe this is a possibility. And so I was pleasantly surprised. I was genuinely impressed. And I think for all the bad press, and this project got a lot of bad press, and I know, and even for operating costs, and I know a lot of issues, but I will say for what it is right now, it's pretty good. And I can't speak for how it's going to be maintained in the future, or once stuff breaks, how we're going to fix it. I don't know, but I can say as it is now, for what it is from Kapolei to Aloha Stadium, I think it's pretty good. I was pretty impressed, and I would encourage people to go and check it out, either on the free weekend or just on their own. If they got 50 minutes to kill, just go park and go down and come back. It's kind of cool. And again, you get to see Oahu, a different part of Oahu, if you're not from that side, from a different perspective. The big question is, would I ever use it? No, probably not, because we live in town, so it doesn't make sense to go out that way. However, if the rail gets connected to town, whenever that is, and there's housing opportunities out on the west side, it could be a possibility. And I guess that was the whole point of this, right? So I hope that they build a lot of housing along the rail stations especially, and really make it for local families. Doesn't have to be fancy, doesn't have to be all luxury stuff, just make it affordable. And again, if you don't know what affordable is, it means cheap. When you hear the price, it's like, oh, that's cheap. That's what affordable means. Doesn't mean the units are cheap, like cheaply made. It doesn't mean poor quality. It just means that it's for local families that, when they actually say the number, they don't have to borrow a down payment from grandparents. They don't have to do all this stuff. They can just be like, okay, I can afford that. That's really nice. And it's just a place for us to live. So I hope you get a chance to try out the rail. Thanks for watching, and aloha.